Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. The hell's he doing now, I hear you ask, or not, as the case may be. I've got my walking boots out. I'm going out on a field trip. We're on the hunt. But before I go, I thought it might be a good idea to look at some images, because although everybody has their idea of this Literati style, it's far from simple. It's not just a trunk with a few branches at the top, because some of the trees that are just that don't work, and some that aren't that do work. So what is it that makes this work for some and not work for others? Well, we can pick on a few. Simple answer, no. Yes. Sort of. Personally, I think the trunk's too thick, given my understanding of the style. Yes, that works. Yes, that sort of works, doesn't it? That works. There's some you just look at and you think, yes, that's right. That's how it's meant to be. Now I may, because some of the images actually appear more than once, we might get the same one up twice. But I'm just trying to get an idea of what we're looking for. And it's difficult to establish what we're really looking for. There's a set of three. They're all quite different. The left-hand one, that trunk is not far off straight. Is there any taper? Virtually none. It's got one low branch and all the rest are over halfway up. The one in the middle is a multi-trunk. Again, look at those trunks. They're not fat at the bottom and skinny at the top, are they? The one on the right, I sort of understand it, but I don't like it. Right, let's just have a look at a few more before we go rummaging around in the countryside. See, now that one to me sort of works, but again I think that trunk's a bit thick for the style that's trying to be achieved. What about that one then? Again, very little taper in the trunk until you're up to at least halfway, and very little foliage and some gins right at the top. Unusual. Like that one. See, that one sort of works for me. There is some taper in the trunk. There's a kink right in the middle of the trunk, but apart from that, it's not a twisty, bendy, curly trunk, is it? Branches pulled down from the top. So, you know, that may work for you, but it doesn't for me. I suppose that works, but I don't particularly like it myself. If it's your tree, I do apologise. I thought these images are just random on the internet. I just put in a search, Literati bonsai, and this is what came up. I don't know whose trees they are. I don't know. I mean, that's probably quite important, that picture. That is, whoops, actually gone to another site now. We don't want to do that. That is the stylized image. So some taper, a few kinks, and most of the foliage in pads at the top. That seems to be the basic principle. And that principle's been applied to that tree, although it's on a slope. So be it, that one works for me. That's one of those that curls round and all of the foliage is hanging down. Again, that's part of the style, the design. I don't like that one at all, personally. That's incredibly basic. What about that one? Do we like that one? Do we like that one? I don't know. Anyway, that's enough nosing around. Now we've got to go and try and find the real thing. And what I'm looking for when I get to this place, see, there's another stylized version. When you do it as a diagram, I think it's easier to demonstrate part of what the goal is. Now this is some form to the trunk, foliage at the top thing. This one, however, has got foliage right at the base and a lot of taper, and yet it still sort of works. It's a difficult one, and anybody who's tried it has probably at first thought that this is working pretty good, and then you stand back and you think, no, perhaps not. It's not as easy as it looks. It really isn't. What about that one? Okay, that's not a pine, it's a conifer, but it's not a pine. Anyway, that's enough thought. So what we're looking for then, basically, in principle, is a long trunk with foliage mainly at the top, in principle, but not absolute. It doesn't have to be exactly that. Some of the trunks are straight, or almost straight. I mean, that hasn't got a lot of twisty-turny stuff in it. To me, that's not quite, that's closer to a normal bonsai than a literati, for me. Don't forget, this is art. It's in the eye of the beholder, and what one person's going to like, another one may not. That's just how it is, and we have to accept that with bonsai. Somebody's pride and joy, somebody else might look at it and think, well, you need to do that, you need to do that, that needs to come off, and and the other person's thinking, that was exactly how I wanted it, and now you've pulled it to pieces. That's bonsai. That's how it happens. Constructive criticism, we'll call it. And no punch-ups. Yeah, anyway, so we'll leave it at that. That's enough nosing around. Let's get out there and see what we can find. So, walking boots on, and let's get going. Right, let's see what we can find. We've had a look at the basic shapes that can work. Now all we've got to do is see if we can find some. Won't be much in this area. This area is a little bit too fertile, so the trees grow quite well here. We'll get deeper into where the soil gets a bit manky, and I'll switch back on when we get somewhere, or when I find something. Got about 5, maybe 6 different types of trees here. There's an odd smattering of oak lying around. There's silver birch, there's Scots pine, there's a long-needled pine, and there's another type of conifer that I really don't know what it is. I'm sure somebody might be able to help if I come across one. So let's get in here and see what we can find. Now, although you probably won't be able to see much, but there are little blue butterflies all over the place here. These are silver-studded blue. This is their habitat, and here there are lots. I mean, there's 3 in one shot there. You've normally got to travel quite a long way to find a few of these, and just scanning around, again, you won't be able to see because they're so small. I mean, I've seen 7 in the area I'm currently in. So yeah, I won't be able to zoom in with these, but I'll take some stills and we'll blow those up. Hopefully they're sharp. But yeah, they're everywhere here. This is their habitat. This is what they like. And I don't know anywhere else where they are that I can get to easily. I mean, I'm less than 3 miles from home here. So I'm over the moon that there's a good population of these. Flying around all over the place. There's a possible there. again, it's a pretty straight trunk, but there's a little tiny bit of shape to it, and there's a wealth of choices of branches that are reasonably foliated near the top to play with, but it's also very tall. So that would be very tall and thin with a few branches at the top. Isn't that exactly what we're supposed to be looking for? So that's a possible. And then there's another giant version here. It's got a lovely gnarly trunk, although again it's got one single curve in it. That's its only shape, and it's also very tall. So that would be quite difficult to work with. It's just too tall. So keep looking. So this one has always held my interest because it's on the path. I come across this one quite often. This is actually growing, but again that's got some interest in it. It's effectively 3 trunks. Well, it's 2 trunks with a thick branch. Quite a lot of foliage near the top. It's got interest, that one, just in its basic shape. It's got some curves, gnarly bark, and if you just wanted to maintain 2 trunks on it, a thicker one and a thin one, not a true twin trunk, but the thick third branch could be just made into a gin and taken out completely. So I've looked at that one several times, and well, it's still there. Let's put it that way. It's still there. Right, we've got lots of sad looking ones over here that we'll now go and inspect a bit closer, see what we can find. There's an old friend. We'll be back for you next year. Genuine twin trunk. Not too far gone with the foliage. Lots of material for gins. And yeah, we'll be back for you. Not now, obviously. Not this time of year. Now these are the other types of conifers that are out here, apart from the Scots pine and the long needle pine. I don't know what this is. It almost looks ornamental, but the colour could have paled and turned that sort of golden colour because of the poor nutrition. And there's very few of these out here, but that's a type of willow, I think. Yeah, it looks like a willow to me. I don't remember seeing that before, but then I don't come down into this area very often. But yeah, it might be interesting to know what sort of conifer that is. I mean, for bonsai purposes, it's got a lovely trunk. It's not a young tree. Ugh. And what about that one? Out of the ones I've seen, that's the one that's got the most shape to the trunk. It's got a distinct break at the start, and it's got various points at which it's changed direction. So as far as the trunks go, that's not a bad one. Some dead bits near the base, and at some point this looks like it's been in the fires. The very outside is a little bit blackened near the base. Never mind, that would clean up. She's got some form here and a choice of branches. You know, once you get several feet up, you could have a low drooping branch to start the sort of thing off, or take that off completely and have more trunk before the first branch. That's got potential, that one, because it's like I said, it's one of the first ones that's got some curves in the trunk ready-made before, you know, having to force them in there. So that's a possible. I certainly won't forget where that one is. It's right next to my old friend. Nice group of sundews there on the sphagnum. I'm surprised they're hanging in there, it's so dry, but I suspect if you break the surface, yeah, it's very wet underneath. So they're doing well. There's another little one trying to do it all on its own. But take a look at this. Probably too big for a bonsai, but that's as it's grown. That would be a gorgeous gin at the base. Literally planted at that angle. It's got branches coming down. Look, it's almost as though somebody's trained this. But it is 4 foot tall, if not more, because some of the trunk will be buried in there. That's a beautiful looking tree. You could really do something with that. Really do something with that. It's very rare to get pines with naturally cascading branches. So I say it almost looks like somebody's been working on that. Let's see if there's any wire marks. No, you're joking. But you could do something with that, couldn't you? Just if only that was only 2 foot tall instead of 4 foot tall. It's a gorgeous looking tree. Very healthy too, considering where it is. So as I say, there's a wealth of material here. I think that's the problem with this area, it's spoilt for choice. But, you know, that'll be a hell of a job to get out of the ground. And as I say, it's far too tall for a bonsai. But then I suppose you could select one of the lower branches as a new leader, but it would be a shame to waste naturally cascading branches, or I think it would anyway. But yeah, it's just that view. Pretty cool. I wonder, well, I've just seen the lizard go over the top, but what's underneath? Mind me fingers. No. Hasn't been there long enough. And there goes the lizard, scuttling away. Too deep in to film. But they love to get on bits of tin because they warm up. And because the tin's warm, the actual creatures warm up much quicker. But again, this has been put here. We've got a log pile and pieces of tin. Again, I'll see if I can... No, I need to go round. My great heavy clodhopper feet would warn anything off long before I got there. Now that's not flat on the ground, can't think why. Unless it's just been set up as a sunning place, whereas the other piece is flat on the ground. And it doesn't look like there's much undergrowth underneath. Watch your fingers. No. Never mind, those could be for future things. If they're deliberately planning on this becoming a wildlife area for our reptiles, then for our amphibians they're going to have to get some water back in, which they've drained out, and for our reptiles they need a lot of this sunning areas, sandy areas that catch the sun, and maybe that's what they're up to, and places for them to hide. Oh, it's a mushroom there, a toadstool. No, I'm not going to eat it. I know nothing about wild things like that, and there's quite a few things like that at best will give you an iffy tum, and at worst you're off to the hospital. Yes, so people are doing work here, and by the nature of the work they're doing, it's going to be for the reptiles, which must mean they're here, unless they're getting it ready for a reintroduction. And if they're going to do that, they're keeping it very, very quiet. It's a nice little oak tree. Nice little oak tree, I said. That's not so little, is it? It's got moss growing all up the trunk, but that's actually got quite a good trunk on it. In under the moss. That's not a little tree at all. It's got stunted growth and stacks of foliage to choose from, and a trunk that curls over at the top. That's quite a nice little oak tree. Yeah. I'm not that interested in having an oak tree as a bonsai because the constantly battling with the problems with the leaves, and in this case gorse, which we've now got prickles all in our fingers. Thank you. That's quite a nice little tree. Good starting point because it's already got a reasonable trunk, so you wouldn't be having to grow it on. Chances are it's got inverse taper, because that's what usually happens when the base is deep down in the heather. It doesn't start spreading its wings until it gets above that line, so you often get a quite narrow area down below. But yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. That was a bigger tree than I thought it was. There's another one over there. Could be the same. There aren't many oaks here. These are going to be jays that collect the acorns and they hide them for the winter, and they don't always remember where they put them all, and that's our new oak trees. If they remembered where they put them all, then there wouldn't be any new oak trees from the jays. They do a grand job doing that. Right, the heather look gorgeous when it's out. It comes out in patches here. It's probably different types of heather, different varieties. If you listen carefully, it sounds like somebody banging two stones together. That's a stone chat. It's all in the name, you know. There's quite a few here. And when they start chatting quite quickly, they're getting annoyed, and at this time of year that probably means you're getting near their nest. So, talking of oaks, what we got here then? It's got good foliage on it. Oh, look at the spider. Not that I like spiders, but that's an unusual spider. There. There it was, gone. So, what's buried in under here then, as far as the trunk is concerned? Again, look at the size of the trunk. And if you look, I really shouldn't be looking at this because I'm now getting interested. You've got a bend coming round here and then going off here and then shooting off at an angle. That's already got some shape to it, and it's got some branches low enough down to work with. That's a good tree. Got a straight bit there. That's a good tree. Oh, I wonder, do I really want an oak? Right, now we've got to do, because I'm in an area I don't normally come to, so what we've got to do now is mark it. I'll never find the bloody thing again. So we need typical. Quite honestly, that large clump of birch is it's the largest clump of birch with foliage right down to the ground in the whole area by far. The only other reasonably large clump is that one, and that's not as big. And quite honestly, it's between the two. Duh. Yeah. I'll think about it. Obviously, the time to come back is midwinter, when the leaves will be gone. I'm going to have a good look at its shape and structure then. Anyway, I've marked it in my head between the two really large clumps of silver birch. That's providing they don't come and cut them down, of course. I wouldn't put it past them. because it's one of the trees they will automatically clear down to the ground, is the birches, because they're so invasive. They grow so fast. But, I tried a silver birch as a bonsai once, but it just died. It grew for about a year and then it just keeled over. All the leaves went brown and I never knew why. But, anyway, car's over there, time for lunch.